Alright, so the closer we get to Halloween, the messier my table gets. I've been pouring plaster skulls and stuff like that, but today we're going to talk about making a very inexpensive plant monster. So this is paper mache, already done, laid over a balloon. I think I have another video like that. I'm sure a bunch of other people do. This, I mean, look at this. The balloon's already popped. Right, there's a hole right there. The balloon's still inside. I'll be getting it back out in a minute because I got to cut a mouth into this thing. This is some plaster that I put on here from where I was pouring. But anyway, so it's real simple. It's one layer of newspaper, one layer of the brown paper, let it dry, and then another layer of the brown paper. The biggest problem is it took 2 days to dry, and this next step is probably going to take overnight to dry. So I'm doing this at like 3 in the morning. Hopefully after I'm doing some stuff tomorrow, I can get back to it and put a final coat. I may not even put, I'm going to put rubber green latex on there. And I may not even put enough to protect it much outside because I can just make another one next year. The biggest thing I need to do right now is draw a face here so I know where to cut out. And I'm going to poke some eyes. So we're going to make this the back. I know traditionally the shape of the plant head goes this way, but my wife and I decided we're going to make this the back and go a different direction. I'm going to use tinted latex to coat it because it's going to be outside now for the next 3 weeks for Halloween. And we're going to punch a couple of holes right here because my wife got me from the dollar store these eyes that light up. So we're also going to do a plant monster with eyes, which is a little unusual. So let me draw the face. I'll show you guys before I cut it. You know how to cut things. And I'll be right back. Alright, so one of the reasons I'm cutting out the shapes and making the holes before I put the latex on is it's going to be easier to do than when the latex is on, because the casting latex is tough enough to be a little tough to get through. The other thing is, it is also the most expensive component of this project, and so if I'm going to cut pieces off, I'd rather cut them off before they're covered in latex than after. I'm sure there would have been a proper way to measure this out to get the mouth more even, but really, you know, it's a monster mouth. We're going to be adding some lips and stuff to it later, so not a big deal. All I really did was draw a line on one side, rotate it around, draw a line about roughly on the same place on the other side. It looks like I missed it by about a half an inch. Again, monster plant, not really a terribly big deal. I'm going to punch a hole right here so that we can get a scissor in there. And actually, that hole punch worked much easier than I thought. And so what I'm going to do, this right now is giving it a little bit of structure, and we're going to lose that when I cut it away, you know, kind of like a unibody car. So before I start punching holes anywhere else, I'm going to do, well, before I cut this, I'm going to punch the eye holes, at least where I'm going to want them to go. So I'm going to roughly want the eyes to go here. I want them to sit on top. Don't really know how big of a hole I need yet at this point. I'm going to want them to face forwards. So here we go. Now, if I'd done this a couple of layers thicker for longevity and strength, I may have needed a Dremel to get through here, or at least a rotary tool, because I do remember having to do that on other projects. The alien mask comes to mind. So now I'm just going to cut this mouth out, and I will be back. The reason I keep stopping you guys is I like to listen to music while I do the grunt work, and you know how scissors work. I pulled the balloon out. I have tried to reuse these because of the paper mache, and they get weaker and stuff. It doesn't usually work, so they're cheap. But I don't like to throw stuff out I don't have to, but latex apparently does break down eventually. And so I may want to cut the mouth a little bigger, but as you can see, it does stay open. So there's just enough structure for that. It's a little floppy, might look cool in the wind. We're going to put some teeth in here. I might need to make it wider if I'm going to put some, well, I do like it that way. If I put some lips on it, I might not, just to save time. Again, this is an outdoor prop. This is not, you know, a movie prop. But this we're going to have to do something about. If you can see in there, I don't know if you can see it on here, but there's the newspaper you can still see through here. And what I'm going to do about that, hang on. There we go. All right. So what I'm going to do about that is I bought a bunch of this. Well, I just bought a bunch. I bought a can of this. And it's much more than I need. I actually don't use this under the car much. But I did put it on my Jeep's roof rails to keep stuff from sliding around. So it's a nice rubber coating for that. And it's a nice deep black. And if you spray it in here, in there, you'll cover all that and you'll give a nice black maw inside the mouth, and then you can add more. I think I may need to make some points of this a little larger, but I'm afraid of losing too much structure here. Because this is the side I want a little further back on, and if you look, that's the side that droops. What if I hang it this way? Stay open a bit more. Heavy side, yeah, it does. So I'm going to make, well, that puts my eye holes in the wrong place, doesn't it? There we go. If I need to, I can always add some cardboard strips in here to open it more. That may be why people do the mouth on this side. But, alright, so for the latex, we're going to use the old method that we do. So this will go on the inside. This is, the undercoating is going to happen tomorrow. This can is 15 ounces. Still feels almost full. It did the entire bottom of the Smoking Dragon that you guys may have seen. Which if you want to see making a video of that, let me know. I took pictures and I've got some stuff that I can post for that. And it did my Jeep rails, and it did a little bit of the underside of the Jeep where there were some small pinholes to keep any more water from coming in. And there's still enough of this to do like 5 or 10 of these. So for the outside latex, the colorful stuff, we're going to use what I molded these rubber fingers with, which is dried out. But I take these old containers. Using a guacamole container for green latex is dangerous if it ever finds its way into the wrong hands. But we just pour a bit of, oh my goodness, casting latex and mix it with the shade of green paint we want. I generally go with the darker one first. It will go on much lighter than it's going to dry. And then after that, it will get a lot closer to the original color once the latex is dried, and that's how you know it's dry. So because the latex is basically clear, basically white when it's wet, and it becomes clear when it's dry, or at least sheer. And so you can use the color of it to determine when it's dry. It's going to take a couple hours on here, but not too terribly long. Work in a well-ventilated space. And we're going to do that, and then I will come back. My green messed up latex brush. One thing I did figure out on how to clean these, still don't last forever. You can see this one's squished from the last time I tried to clean it. But just some water. Give it a little, it is a sponge essentially, so get the water in there, come down with a glove on, and squeeze out all that latex that is just kind of stuck in there. One of the things I don't like about these brushes is you do tend to lose a bit, but most of what it's absorbing seems to be the agent that keeps it from drying, so that helps a bit. But definitely some latex gets in there because when it's dry, it's rubber. The other thing you'll notice when you're painting dyed latex onto paper mache, first coat's going to go on very streaky, because since you use PVA glue to make your, well, if you use PVA glue to make your paper mache mix, you're going to wind up with basically a glossy plastic coat, and the latex isn't going to want to stick to that. But once that first coat dries, latex loves to stick to itself, so the second coat will go on much nicer. That's why you want to get an early start on it. And now I'm going to take all this extra latex and just go rub it on the model, and I'm going to let it settle for a while. I do need to go unseparate the lifts. Let me show you guys something. So, one of the great things about latex is when it dries, it's super strong, so its strength is fantastic. Well, casting latex. One of the problems with it is, when it dries, it's super strong. So, right here, we've got this spot here where the weight brought the top down and it's touching the bottom part. We need to make sure it doesn't dry like that, because we got two choices. We can either powder it, which I don't want to do while I'm still painting it, or we can get something in there to keep them from touching. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this in there and prop it up, and I'm going to need my hand to do that. So there we go. Try and get it not to touch any of the latex. The reason I don't want to powder it yet is I'm going to be putting more on in probably about 30-40 minutes. And I want it to stick to the latex that's there. But, yeah, you can already see here the parts that are drying are darker. These light parts up front. And you can see through the streaks where it's very, very thin. And that'll get covered in the next coat very nicely. And I'm definitely going to have to put some cardboard right here to reinforce, to keep the weight from making it close. We'll see how the teeth work too in helping with that. So what I've got is these regular vampire teeth. Got a dozen of these for $1.25 at Dollar Tree. And a friend of mine gave me this idea. You cut them in half, right there, and then you put them in each row. I did it on the Dragon. You guys can check it out and see that on that video. There's also a short of a smoking dragon floating around. That's the same thing. I will see you guys soon. Alright, so what happened was overnight the piece I put in to keep this from closing fell out, and the weight of the latex had closed the head, and that's a bit of a problem. Didn't stick too badly, so it must have already been kind of dry by the time that happened. You can see the darker green there. The brown patches in there aren't too bad, but there's going to be a lot more painting going on, so we'll take care of that. But this little piece fell in and doesn't have any latex on it, so that's okay. But so I stuck a bigger piece in here, and I'm hoping that we can reshape this as the latex dries this time and get it to where it'll stay open a little more. When I put the fangs in, I'm hoping those will help. I might need to put some cardboard risers, but my wife just did the recycling, and I'm kind of short on cardboard right now. So we're working with this. And then hopefully before the sun goes down, my latex is dry, and I can spray the rubber coating on the inside and maybe the back a bit. And we'll get back to it. Alright, so we're outside, and I got the rubber coating in the mouth there. Nice and black. I missed a spot right there, I can see. Actually, I think this is light. And I did let it get around the lips. Give it some black there. And then I went over it with some green spray paint I had left over. I may or may not do one more thing of latex. I don't know. Some brown still showing through, but that's not really tragic on a plant. I'm probably going to add some yellow and some red. And then we'll put the teeth in later. And for the stick, I am going to use a branch I have in my yard. So, freebie. And this drying table is just 2 sawhorses and part of an old futon, because these thin little pieces here, you'll see like latex and stuff sticks to them, but it's easy to get stuff off. So, oh, and this is in here because when it's wet, again, it gets heavy and it wants to close up. And if we let it dry this way, it'll stay closer to that shape in the end. And I may just take like a couple of sticks and hot glue them in there to keep it open like that. After we do, well, before we do the teeth, so we know where the teeth need to go. So yeah, that's where we're at. Alright, so I found this stick outside. It's already got that little stake chopped into the bottom, so I think I'm just going to jam this into the ground. And the twig coming up from it, the little branch here, I've hot glued it on the end here. Probably going to put some green latex there to give it more hold. If you come up, you can see where I painted inside. There's still some newspaper showing. But that stick in there is holding this top piece off. Next thing I'm going to do is I've cut these fangs down, and I'm going to hot glue a bunch of them around the mouth. I'm going to start at the front and maybe do some at the sides, and then we're going to put the eyeballs in. These are the eyes my wife picked me up from the dollar store. Tricky thing is they're meant for carved pumpkins, and so there's a pretty thick edge here. I'm going to push that into the hole, see how far it gets, and then my idea is to put a strip of paper over it and cover that in the green latex. These are the teeth mounted, the first set. I think I mounted them upside down, but they work. This hot glue here, it's very hard to kind of hot glue these on because this is so thin, the paper mache. So what I'm going to do, I left this bead, I was going to paint it pink, but I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a pink reddish for gums and stuff latex right here, and that'll give it some more hold. So when the hot glue inevitably gets deteriorated from being outside, the latex will hopefully hold them in place. And the last bit is, you could age these up and weather them and make them look more like teeth, but these are glow-in-the-dark fangs. So at night for an hour or so, hopefully we'll still get some glow if I can get him in a sunny place. and the eyes light up, and so at night it'll still be kind of a presence. I need to decide if I'm going to put more along the sides. I kind of like them just at the front. My friend who I got the idea from used them all along here, but I think this set I kind of just like right there. All right, let's get those eyes. The eyes went in super easy. So the eyes, still got to cover them up a little bit. Tricky part is I'm going to have to leave this top piece here open because that's where the tiniest little switch in the world is. But I really kind of like that. And since it was already latexed, pushing them through the hole and the hole expanding, and then the rubber just kind of stretches and comes back into place and holds them where we need to be. So we're looking good on that. Hopefully next time you see this guy, he'll be outside. So I keep waiting to get a shot of him at night with the eyes lit up, and I just haven't had the time. So if I'm going to finish this video, this is him. His mouth got crooked from the rain and then drying with the sun. So we put a stick in there to help straighten it out. And the eyes kind of strobe at night. But yeah, I mean, free stick, paper mache head, I don't think we did too badly.